Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the pre-show for Vert Verticals podcast episode 90. 10 episodes away from the coveted 100 episode mark. This is the pre-show as we usually do, or have been doing for the past couple of shows. Got a big show for you guys today. Got, of course, the NFL draft is tonight. Got some thoughts on some of the non-conference games. Now, of course, next week or next Thursday is when we will be starting. Exactly this time next week on May 1st, we will be beginning our team projection series, if you will. We'll be starting that. Of course, last year when we got the show started, we didn't necessarily, we started in June. And everything was a bit of a blur, right? We had June, and we had to get through all the teams. We were doing like 3 record projections and 1 show, and it wasn't good. And of course, that's back then we were doing 3 shows a week, and now we're down to 2. Of course, we couldn't easily bring back 3 shows. We could, but we're not necessarily going to be doing that, like putting multiple teams in 1 show. We may still do that, but we'll space out. We're starting it in May. We'll go all the way until July. And so we'll be starting that, I guess, as like a little programming note. We'll be starting that next week, this time next week on May 1st. So we'll be doing a team next week, and I'll let you guys know who it is when the show starts, when the stream's ready to go. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. Of course, we are broadcasting high atop a steamy Jacksonville, Florida. It's going to be pretty warm here in Jacksonville for a while. No more relatively cool mornings. Everything is hot. It's going to be near 90 the rest of the week. It's near 90, I think, right now, as I'm checking the old weather app. 81 degrees, 87 Saturday and Sunday, and it's going to be about the same, although it will be a little bit, quote-unquote, cooler on Monday, but still low to mid-80s. Pretty warm. Then this time next week we'll be near 90 again. So how about that? But we have that. It's College Football 26, EA Sports College Football 26 news finally coming in. So we have a lot of things to talk about. So we have, I guess we'll start here in a minute. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. Of course, like I've mentioned, I think I did mention a few minutes ago that the NFL draft is tonight. So how about that? Of course, Andor came out on yesterday or Tuesday, actually, and don't worry, we'll have a lot to say about that. I guess that's all I'm going to mention about that. But first, we have our Q&A as usual, so we will be doing that. Giving some time for folks to come in here. Of course, we are on Twitter as well. So if you are wanting to join us there, I put the link out already, so you can join whenever you would like. So if you are there, then if you're on Twitter right now, then you can join us via there. Of course, we're not streaming on Twitter. Who knows? Maybe someday we will do that. At the moment, we're not, because it's only a Spotify and YouTube only podcast. So if you want the live version, go to YouTube, pre-recorded or at least the version will be released a bit later or tomorrow. That'll be different here. Of course, we'll get started here in a few minutes, on a little bit early, but that's okay. Checking some things here real quick on the computer here. Got the recorder ready to go. Got the show notes. Of course, transfer portal. Winding down a little bit, if you will. At the moment, not a lot of big movement. But a big news in the last 30 minutes, or well, not in 30 minutes, the last really since noon has been EA Sports College Football 26. So there's finally some news. Now, one of the questions here I'll tease out has to do with college football. Now, College Football 26 will have its own segment going over the news, but there was a question before all of this. I was speaking on the lack of news, and I'll touch on that a little bit later as a sort of I'll tie into that to the main topic there. We'll start here about a minute here. The actual show. Of course, YouTube version will be a lot longer than the actual stream, or the actual show itself, which will be on Spotify. So you don't want the pre-show stuff. If you're on YouTube, move the slider about 6 minutes in or so. But yeah, we're about to get started here any moment now. Do the countdown. Still waiting. All right, here we go. 2:30 now. So again, if you're on YouTube, move the slider over to around 7 minutes on YouTube. So about right now. So in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Four Verticals podcast episode number 90. 10 episodes away from the coveted 100 episode mark. We're getting so close. Can't believe it. Got a big show today. Got a lot of great topics to go over here as I'm going over to my notes here. Best non-conference games 2025. Of course, the season is getting ever so close to us. So I figured why not, since we're about to be in May this time next week, why not go over the best non-conference games for 2025? A whole lot. I got 10 of them here. Transfer portal update. A lot of folks finding some landing spots finally. So we're getting some clarity, if you will, in the portal. Got some sort of a wrap-up, if you will, final wrap-up on Tennessee and this whole Nico saga. And then recently, if you weren't here for the pre-show, at least on Spotify, you got some College Football 26 news. How about that? Finally got some new news. Of course, the new Star Wars show Andor released. This will probably be the only time I talk about the show in its entirety. And, of course, the controversy that was revealed weeks ago. And then we have Q&A, and then we'll have some Buccaneers pre-draft thoughts. Yes, the Buccaneers finally making a return here on the podcast with the draft tonight. Which direction do they go? What moves will be made for them? So we'll sort of dive into that a little bit. Of course, if you are new here, first of all, welcome in. We do this show Tuesday, Thursday, and afternoon, if you will. We talk about college football, Star Wars, Marvel, when the news is available. Of course, there's a lot of news coming up with, especially at Marvel with Thunderbolts. But so college football, Marvel, Star Wars, the Buccaneers as well, when appropriate, especially on this time of the year, and I guess somewhat going forward now because we are getting to that mode, if you will. But of course, we'll throw in some Q&A, mainly around this time of the year, spring, summer, late winter. Of course, we get into the season, won't be enough time for a Q&A, at least not usually. But if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. That's all we're asking. Nothing happens. I don't, knock on your door or go to show up to your house or whatever and force you to sign anything, give me money, like the shows up behind a paywall or anything, unlike some shows, at least ones with ads or anything. Of course, we don't have an advertiser or anything like that, but this is complete independent media here. It's just me, my thoughts. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on notifications. I don't personally, for my channels I subscribe to. It's not required, but you can do so if you want. But what I am telling you to is make sure you subscribe. Even if you are, there's 5 of you, make sure you do subscribe. Same on the podcast feed. If you're listening to over there on Spotify, subscribe on there. And make sure to leave us a review, too. We like getting those when we can. So, again, we've got a loaded show. We're going to go for an hour, right? This is going to be a long show, I'm afraid. But on YouTube and on Spotify. I'm just not afraid, right? I guess I like talking to you guys, but these long shows me a lot, very strained on the voice. But look, we can go as long as we want to. It's not that big of a deal. We can deal with it. We're I want to say we're pros, but we've been doing this for almost a year now, so we can handle it. But I'm gonna have some water here in lieu of that, and then we'll get started in our first topic here. So I was going to mention this. So I mentioned it. If you're listening to this on podcast, I guess someone on YouTube now, if you made it this far, that on the pre-show on YouTube, I mentioned, or I sort of reminded you guys that starting next week, May 1st, Thursday, and Thursday show next week, we will be beginning our team projection, record projection. So the best case, worst case, most reasonable for most teams in the FBS, major teams, especially in the Power 2, the other 4 major conferences. We will be starting that next week. So we will be choosing a team next week to go over their record, project, and whatnot, and sort of a previews. We are getting into preview magazine season. So that will be starting next week. So in lieu of that, that's why we started our this segment, which is the best non-conference games for 2025. So it's not of course, it's not going to cover every single game. This will be a game or a list of 10 games, not in any particular order. Though the one that is first is sort of the one I'm most looking forward to. I'm sure most of you are. So, and by the way, this will not be exclusively including neutral site games for non-conference. There is one, unfortunately, which is Georgia and Georgia Tech. I did not include Iowa State, Kansas State, but that's a conference game. But if you understand, I'm just saying that, like for example, Syracuse, Tennessee, South Carolina, Virginia Tech. While I am excited for those matchups, not crazy about the venue, but unfortunately, Georgia Tech and Georgia, they are playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium for whatever reason. There's nothing wrong with Bobby Dodd Stadium, but whatever. I can't do anything about it, but not a fan of it. But anyway, let's get into this. So what are the best non-conference games, at least in my opinion? First off, Clemson LSU. To me, this is the one I was guaranteed to put at number one. Very excited, of course, to get Kay Klumnik for Clemson, the Clemson offense. Tom Allen as defensive coordinator first game. Garrett Nussmeier and LSU very active in the portal. Brian Kelly has yet to win a opening conference game since what was it? Back to Notre Dame, I believe. So it's been that long, and he's been at LSU for already 4 years now. So he has yet to win a opening season game. Doesn't mean he can't do it; he just hasn't done it yet. Will they do it? Of course, this is the old adage of, which Death Valley is better than the other Death Valley. Look, I don't care. I'm just glad they're playing on a college campus. It's in Clemson, South Carolina. I'm assuming this is where game day will probably be at. One of the locations, of course, will be Lee Corso's final game day. This game likely will be on ABC because the ACC, ESPN, ABC, they still do games on ABC there. So would likely assume this will be a 3:30 kickoff. So this might be a 3:30 kickoff because I think the Bama Florida State game will probably be the primetime game on ABC, even though it's a Florida State home game since there's no SEC non-conference games at home. That would necessarily be the SEC on ABC, I think. I haven't looked at the full schedule yet, at least everyone's schedule. But off the top of my head, I believe this will be a game on ABC. But either way, very exciting matchup. It's a road game for LSU. Again, Brian Kelly not winning a season opener. No, that's not required. It's not like a law in the United States Constitution or anything like that. It's not like you get to send to prison for not winning your season opener. But I think LSU fans would like to see it to happen. It's not required, but it's a good litmus test, right? It's two very good programs. Clemson, everyone's been down on Clemson for a while. But as you'll see in our season previews, if you will, starting next week, I'm not saying Clemson will be the first team we cover. They might, but I might be high on Clemson. Who knows? It might surprise you that I'm actually kind of excited for Clemson this year. And now in the future, I don't know. But this year could be really good. They have good receivers coming back again. It's Garrett Riley, year 3 as the OC. Lincoln Riley's brother. Kay Klumnik again. One last hurrah there with LSU. Garrett Nussmeier final last hurrah. Good quarterback battle here in terms of, seeing if you want to have a high-scoring game, this will probably be for you. Clemson, LSU, I have listed here first. Second on the list, Texas, Ohio State, same day. Again, another exciting game. These two teams ironically played each other in the semifinals, albeit new faces, right? New quarterback for Ohio State. Probably going to be Julian Sand, Texas, Arch Manning. So there's that, of course, Ohio State. Defensive line, probably going to be the one position group I'm most worried about, or not worried, but just curious about. Texas, same thing. The wide receiver group, defense, a lot of new faces. These skill position groups. I would expect this game, of course, this game is still a long ways away, but I would imagine this Ohio State-Texas game. For one, I would imagine this will probably be the NBC game, the night game on NBC. So Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge, I'd imagine. Though could also potentially be the 3:30 game on CBS. So we'll see. But imagining it, the fact that it's a big game like this, I reasonably assume it's probably going to be NBC and not CBS or Fox. It could be Fox as well, just given big noon kickoff, and they do, by the way, have the first right to games. So I'm imagining either NBC or Fox probably for this game. But either way, a fun matchup. Would imagine it'd probably be sloppy because again you're having a lot of new faces at a lot of these major positions, including quarterback. First year starters with Julian Sane and Arch Manning. Third here, Notre Dame in Miami. Convicts versus Catholics here. A little bit of a old school matchup here. First time they met each other, I believe, since 2017, I believe. Last time they played each other in another season. Don't quote me on that. But I do believe this is the first matchup in a while, if I can recall now. I don't remember off the top of my head. Did they play each other in 2020? I don't think so, but I'm trying to remember here. I don't think, did they? I don't know. 2020 was such a long time ago now. Half a decade, but either way, this will be a huge game. I believe this will be the Sunday game on ABC. So, yeah, it is on Sunday. So this should be a fun game as well. It's in Miami, not in Coral Gables, but at Hard Rock Stadium. So it's not a true conference. It's not a true home campus game for Miami, but it's what it is. Next up here, another Notre Dame game. Texas A&M Notre Dame. Again, last year's game, was week 1, and this will be week 4, I believe, or week 3. Last year's game, a lot of hype with it. A lot of folks, including me, picked Texas A&M to win this game. Of course, Mike Elko, first year, now he's going to his second year. Marcel Reed will be the starter for them. Second year with Colin Klein as the OC. A little bit, could have been a year ahead on A&M last year. Of course, this will be Notre Dame's other major, of course, they're independents, so this will be another major game for them. Test, of course, USC later in the year and some other games as well. But this will be a tough one for Notre Dame. These two games sort of, somewhat back-to-back here in their schedule within the first 4 weeks or so. So that Texas A&M game, it was a spectacle last year. Of course, that was the first ABC primetime game in the SEC on ABC package. This one will be on NBC. So how about that? This next one, again, unfortunately, it's a non-conference game that I'm excited for, but it's a neutral site game, unfortunately. Technically, it's a Georgia Tech home game. It is in Atlanta, but it's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so it is a neutral site game. It's Georgia Tech. One of the best games, or at least in terms of high-scoring games and, I guess, appeal. One of the best non-conference games last year. Multiple overtimes, one of the longest games, or I believe the longest game in that series. Georgia Tech, man, I'm telling you, Georgia Tech is a sneaky team, a surprise team. Haynes King coming back, Brent Key. I know a lot of folks were sort of, concerned about when he was hired and not when they were going after the bigger names. The past coaching cycle a couple years ago, because they whiffed on a number of names. I believe one of them was the old Tulane head coach. I'm forgetting his name. He's at Houston right now. Let me look this up. Yeah, live research here on the For Verticals pod. Who is their head coach? I should know who this is. Houston. Apologize, folks, for doing this. I just really wanted to make sure I get his name right. Why am I forgetting his name? Willie Fritz. Yeah, that's who it was. Yes, Georgia Tech a couple years ago wanted to get Willie Fritz, but they didn't. And now they're with Brent Key, and he has certainly been a very surprised hire that's worked out for them. And, of course, the game was close last year, much like everyone else. I think Georgia Tech is going to be a surprise team. Georgia, new quarterback, a lot of newness for them. Though, they did get some good pieces, though. Even though they're new, they're good pieces. I guess we'll touch on that here in a little bit. Georgia Tech, Georgia, another game I'm really excited for, even though it's a neutral site game. Auburn, Baylor is next here. Number 6 here on the list. Kudos for both these teams again. A non-conference game at a college campus, and this will be in Waco, Texas. Auburn, a lot of pressure with you for not necessarily job pressure, but I guess it is Auburn, so there is some job security pressure year 2 with a lot of these new recruits from past, not this past cycle, but the year before of recruiting with Cam Coleman. Reasonably, I would assume with Jackson Arnold being there, hopefully that's an improvement. Baylor, Blake Shapen being back, Dave Aranda. A lot of folks left him for dead. A lot of folks were, Dave Aranda's on the hot seat, didn't get fired. He's still around, still there. Won 9 games last year. So how about that? That's a sneaky team, Baylor. Just don't. I know Auburn's a slight favorite. Last time I checked, I keep telling you guys, well, don't be surprised Baylor's a favorite come August. I think they might be. I'm not saying Auburn's going to lose that game, because we'll have enough time to preview that game, because that's actually on a Thursday night, or a Friday night. But if I were an Auburn fan, I'm a little bit concerned, because that's a very good team. TCU, UNC, again, it's an on-campus game, though the return game will not be, unfortunately. It's going to be in freaking Ireland. But anyway, nothing against the folks in our Irish friends, folks in Ireland, not the referring to Notre Dame fans, but it's not going to – he's losing the home game. I've already spoke about that on Tuesday, but luckily for Bill Belichick and company, they do get to have their home opener in Chapel Hill. It'll be interesting to see here with UNC getting they got their transfer quarterback from South Alabama, TCU, Josh Hoover and company. Sonny Dykes, sort of a coach that a lot of people, a program that people have forgotten about since that national title run years ago. They won, was it 9 games last year, 8 games? So quietly getting back to, or at least getting, because the year after they won made it to the national title, they went 5-7. Very, very sharp fall off there for a national title participant. So you saw TCU last year sort of get back to, I guess, quote unquote normal. Hopefully they get back to that. Again, it's Bill Belichick and Sonny Dykes. It's kind of a matchup that none of us would ever predict would ever happen, but here we are. Here's one that's sneaky. Oregon, you guys know that Oregon goes to, we'll touch on that in a minute. Preview here. I skipped one. Interestingly, skipped one. Alabama going to Florida State. Mike Norvell, a lot of pressure there. Gus Malzahn's the head coach. Tony White, the DC. I'm more of a fan of the, this right here is the latter, which would be Tony White, the Malzahn. A lot of new faces there at Florida State. Bama, new face at quarterback. It's going to be Ty Simpson. Florida State, by the way, too, with this being in Tallahassee, the stadium renovations that were going on last year, that's why things are a little bit weird with the attendance, because not only did the team suck, but even that game against Boston College, it's like just weird, right? A lot of areas were blocked off. Stadium was under construction. It should be done by then. I think it's almost done. So it should be a packed house. I know with the situation that happened last week, there's a little bit more added emotion for that, the first home game. I'm sure there'll be something that will be brought up, especially during the game itself, but also during like game day and a lot of these other morning sports shows. But yeah, just the added emotion there of what happened last week. Of course, if you know, I've been following the news, but very emotional game, but also a game that Florida State fans, I'm sure most of you are not expecting to win this game. I'm not, a spoiler here, I'm not going to probably pick you to win this game. But it would be nice to see Florida State have a pulse, right? After last year and the team quitting and, the team was in quit mode most of the year. Would like to see a pulse from Florida State, just a little bit of a heart. They don't have to win the game, but sort of like, i.e. Auburn and Clemson 2016, where everyone was picking Auburn to go like 3-9 and Malzahn was going to get fired. Auburn showed some heart in that game against Clemson. That was a Clemson team that won the national title that year. So I'm just telling you, it's some weird things here when you get these games on campus, which I love. Now, the game I was getting excited about, interestingly enough, is do you guys know that Oregon goes to Oklahoma State, to Stillwater? You guys know that? I do. I know, or I'm pretty sure most of the public, general public, the casuals don't know. This is a sneaky game. Oklahoma State last year was really, really bad. It was historically bad. Mike Gundy sort of been the model of consistency in the Big 12, even with Texas and OU being in the conference for so long. Now they've since left. Oklahoma State was the model of consistency there. No losing season in the past. And most of my lifetime, they've been really consistent, very, very good. Last year was horrible. It was just bad. I don't know what happened there necessarily. Injuries is a part of it. I don't know. It's just bad. It's really, really weird. And it started out decently enough, right? They beat Arkansas in their non-conference game last year. So it's, I don't know, it's just a lot of weird going on with Oklahoma State. Goes Oregon, have to replace some guys. A new starter there of Dante Moore. I believe he is a starter, yeah. A lot of new freshmen too, and I think that's one thing with Dan Lanning and company. While they've recruited really, really well, last year somewhat portal-heavy team, especially with getting some depth there, and a lot of those guys were starters. That's something that Bud Elliott has mentioned on Cover 3, and I kind of agree, too. This will be the first time, if you're an Oregon fan, or really a college football fan in general, that you're going to be seeing a Dan Lanning team in terms of his actual players, the guys he's recruited out of high school. So that's not saying it's a bad thing. And hey, look, if you want to use the portal and use it in conjunction with high school recruiting, I'm all for it. But we'll see here. They're getting some young guys in there, fresh guys out of high school. Look, the first time we'll be seeing it, right? This will be a mostly like 95%, Oregon team. That'll be mostly made out of guys that Dan Lanning has personally recruited, not guys he's gone on the portal. So, again, it's not a bad thing, but it's just you're noticing some cautiousness, some nervousness, if you will, my voice, that, you have a desperate team, Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy's a good coach. Think of him what you will off the field, but good coach. It's a good program. It's a program that's very prideful. It's a prime spot for them. Haven't checked that line yet for that game. I believe this is week 1, or within the first few weeks. But I'd imagine that line's probably going to be Oregon minus like 5.5 or something, or 5.5 plus, around maybe even 2 touchdowns more. But tricky game there. Tricky game. Just be careful. This last one here, Georgia Tech in Colorado. This will be week 1. I believe this is Friday as well. So you have Deion Sanders, Post, Shador leaving, and Travis Hunter, Julian Lewis, again, Salter. I believe, I don't know, has that battle been settled yet? I don't believe it has, or else I would have known about it. Of course, again, Georgia Tech getting one of my surprise teams, if you will, a team I'm really excited about. Could make some noise there in the ACC. This could be a test year, a nice little resume boost here for Georgia Tech, for Colorado. Same thing as well. Again, you're going to be seeing a lot of new faces there if you're a Buffs fan. Head coach is still there. OC, DC still there, but new quarterback. A lot of new faces there for the Colorado Buffaloes. That should be a fun game. That's a very underrated game there. I think that is week 1. I believe it is a Thursday or Friday game. It's a weekday game, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So how about that? A lot of weekday games. Auburn, Baylor, Georgia Tech, Colorado. Interesting. So yeah, those are my non-conference games I'm paying attention to. Now, of course, I could have added like Florida State, Florida, South Carolina, Clemson, but these were some of the games I was really excited about. Again, I'm telling you guys that Oklahoma State, Oregon games, be careful. That's a game to kind of put back in back of your mind, put it back in the filing cabinet there, and just remember that that's a game that is happening. In fact, let me check. I need some more research. Let me see when is that game taking place? It's not week 1. I don't think it is. If I'm not mistaken, let's see Oklahoma State's schedule. Yeah, that's week 2. And it's actually, excuse me, not in Stillwater, Oklahoma. It's in Autzen Stadium. So my bad. Fact error. It is going to be a road game. So, yeah. So forget everything I just said earlier. Yeah, that Oregon-Oklahoma State game, that's a road game. I thought it was this whole entire time I was thinking it was a home game for Oklahoma State. But no, I guess it's going to be next year. So, yeah. So I would imagine that opening spread's probably going to be like, what, 11 points probably? Like, obviously 10 points plus. So, mistake there, but still a fun matchup there. I mean, look, you never know, right? With Oklahoma State, a brand new staff there, Todd Grantham, third in Grantham's there at Stillwater. He's new hire, Doug Meacham, been around for a while, and as the OC for them, has been around college football for a while. But yeah, so again, factor error there. Oregon is hosting Oklahoma State. I'm assuming they'll be traveling to Stillwater next year. So again, apologies there. I guess I didn't realize this is going to be a home game for Oregon and not for Oklahoma State. So apologies there. I believe that is going to be a road game for Oklahoma State, but still very excited to watch that. Regardless of the location, as long as it's not a neutral site game, and that's fine. Again, that's why you're not seeing Tennessee, Syracuse. Even that'd be a good matchup, but neutral site. Again, same thing. Virginia Tech, South Carolina, great matchup, right? Shane Beamer going against the school his dad coached at. I like the fact it's taking place in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Duke's Mayo kickoff, but whatever, is what it is. Nothing I can do about it unless we get an actual commissioner who actually gives us structure in the sport. Speaking of structure in the sport, transfer portal, I'm going to get some water real quick here, and we'll get into some new faces and new places here. Three names I want to talk to you about. Some of these are sort of old news, but we didn't have a chance to talk about them yet. So I'm going to get some water here and we'll move on. So transfer portal been very active. A lot of schools making some moves here. So Steve Angeli, as you mentioned, of course, he loses the job, his starting job to Lloyd Carr's grandson, quarterback there for Notre Dame. Angeli moves into the portal. He's going to Syracuse. So he's replacing Kyle McCord. I believe Syracuse didn't mention a starter or they didn't name a starter. So kind of weird there, a little bit weird dynamic, but either way, if nothing, a good depth piece for Syracuse. Though I'd imagine you're bringing in Steve Angeli from the portal to Syracuse. I'd imagine you want to be the starter. So, okay. This is what it is. They're Fran Brown there, It's a good coach, good year last year. Though their schedule a little more difficult than it was last year. It's not a very friendly schedule for them this year, or at least this time around. Ilo Medozi. I believe how you pronounce that. Medozi or Medozi. I believe it is Medozi. Defensive end from Army, so he's serving in the U.S. military or being a part of it. Not anymore. He's going over to Georgia. Defensive line, a position at Georgia. Frankly, needed some help in. Them, Ohio State, two schools that definitely need help in that. Good pick up there for Georgia against interior defensive lineman, I believe, or actually, no, he's a D-end. So, obviously, Georgia needed some help there. That's one of the position groups that's been coming off spring that I believe Kirby Smart and company need some help in, and up and around getting some depth there. And, of course, being a Army transfer part of the U.S. military gives you some good brains there. The next one here for Georgia, number one, Josh McCray, running back from Illinois. Good player. Had some injury issues. He hasn't been like a major part of Illinois. He's not like, you're losing a crucial piece there. I think them keeping Luke Altmaier, who could have gone to Tennessee and other places, him and Josh Hoover were in the mix there, but Illinois did lose a player, and that's Josh McCray going to Georgia. Help getting a veteran running back there in the running back room that's been very, I'm going to say unknown, but a lot of mystery there. So at least it's gives some clarity, though, again, he is an injury-prone guy. So update there at the transfer portal there. I guess we could go to the rankings here for 247 transfer class rankings here. So you can get an update on that. Kind of see where everyone's at. So here, team rankings. So Texas Tech, number one team in the portal. LSU doing some good work. So unlike last year, LSU's finally using the portal, using their tools to their ability. So Texas Tech 1, LSU 2, Ole Miss 3, Oregon 4. So again, Oregon still using the portal, but I think this year, as people have indicated, this will be a more of a actual recruited or a recruit-laden team with Dan Lanning. So the first time we'll be seeing that. Again, it's not a bad thing, but it's not a good thing either. I guess we'll see. But I trust Dan Lanning and company. They've recruited very, very well, at least with the players they're bringing in. We'll just see how they perform. Miami's at 5, Missouri 6, very sneaky Missouri. Auburn at 7. Did a lot of work in the portal, obviously. Florida State 8, Kentucky, sneaky there. Kentucky at 9. And then rounding out the top 10 is North Carolina, Bill Belichick, using the transfer portal. How about that? Of course, he's very familiar with that, with free agency. So, Texas Tech being number 1 there. I'm sure everyone now is using them as their sort of Cinderella team, if you will, or a sneaky team, but not sneaky anymore. Joe McGuire and company, very good. A very good coach, has a lot of connections in the Texas high school system, so that's sort of helping him getting a lot of these guys who are from Texas to come back, especially if you're, looking at players who are from Texas on other school not in Texas. So that's kind of the benefit there being having those connections. But portal update, I believe it closes next week, I believe, so on the 28th. Yeah, so a couple more days, they'll be closing it up. At least for players to enter in, but you can still be in the portal, have to find a spot now, but I would imagine most starters and most schools are looking for starters and want to, some resolution, if you will, sooner rather than later. But you have until the 28th, I believe, on Monday, was when you can enter your name into the database. So how about that? Moving right along there. Tennessee question here, and I would have added this into the actual Q&A, but I figured why not just stick it here. So we have the Nico situation. Of course, Tennessee gets their quarterback from UCLA via App State. Of course, everyone's wondering, will Tennessee be fine after losing Nico? I will just say they will be fine. I'm not too concerned about the quarterback position. In fact, I'm not concerned about the offense at all, really, to be honest. And this really goes back to the whole scheme here. Look, this show is not going to be about, getting a grease sport out and diagramming a play or anything. I didn't play college. I didn't play football in college, especially, nor in high school. But I did do track and field. But with Tennessee offensively, they should be fine, right? I think with the Baylor Bryles stuff, the veer and shoot, I think it's been proven that you don't need necessarily a 5-star guy to run. You can get really any decent quarterback, right? As long as you have good enough arm strength, you can maybe helps if you're a runner to run the offense and having that dual threat ability, keeping the defense honest. It helps. So I think Tennessee offensively, they should be fine. I'm not going to be worried about it. Yes, is it a downgrade in terms of talent? But in terms of running that offense, you don't necessarily need like a world beater at quarterback to run that offense. I think it's been very much so proven. It's not required. I think Tennessee will be fun on that standpoint. Yes, they need to get proven production out of the receivers and, of course, running back losing Sampson to the draft. It hurts a little bit, but I think offensively they should be in better shape than defense. I think defensively, I'd imagine they will be taking a step back. A lot of these guys are moving on to the NFL draft. A lot of those names you should be hearing tonight, if not tomorrow. But yeah, I think Tennessee should be fine. I think their over/under win total, by the way, is like 8.5, I believe. So if Tennessee wins like 8 games, maybe 9 somehow, about in the ballpark. That's not. You shouldn't be worried about that. I mean, I think with Tennessee, regardless if Nico Iamaleava was there or not, I would imagine they would struggle defensively still. I think offensively, still a lot of mystery about wide receivers, running back situation there. O-line as well, another problem as well to get at least some mystery there. Not only like a major problem, but certainly a mystery. So, yeah, either with or without Nico, this team would probably be around an 8-win team, 9-win team if I were to, look ahead to my record projections for them. I think 9 wins is probably your best case for most reasonable situation for them, at least record-wise. Of course, the schedule's the same as it was last year in terms of the conference stuff. So, your Floridas of the world, Bama's, Georgia's. So, I'm not really concerned about Josh Heupel. Not concerned about the offense. Am I worried about the defense? Yes. A lot of improving talent there. But, again, 8 wins and 9 wins. But I'm not expecting a 10-win season. That'd be great. But I'm not expecting that. Now, if they go 6-6, 5-7, 4-8, that's a little bit concerning. But grant you, with all the changes they've had, we've seen that before. We've seen that happen before, where a team, makes it or close to the playoff. Last year being Tennessee, and then having a really horrible year. That was Florida State last year. Mike Norvell and company. They went from 13 wins to 2 wins. I'm not expecting that for Tennessee. I think their roster is disaster-proof. Though I think all of us said that about Florida State last year. And so a little bit of a disclaimer there. It's not a guarantee that they're disaster-proof, but I don't think they are. But again, because of the full Florida State thing last year, it's something that we kind of have to entertain a little bit in terms of, could this team fall apart because of their schedule and because of how much they've lost? Again, I'm not too concerned, but, it's the kind of, it's sort of the best way I can describe Tennessee. It's the kind of okay, not really okay kind of thing here. But, yeah, Tennessee, I think they'll be fine. Offensively, they should be okay, I think. Defensively, though, interior, the O-line, defensive line for Tennessee especially, I would be concerned, if you will, or at least it's a mystery in terms of what kind of production could they get out of the new faces they'll be having. Speaking of new, College Bowl 26 has some news. So EA Sports, of course, the draft tonight. More on that, of course, with the Buccaneers, or specifically the Buccaneers. But the draft tonight, EA Sports, the Madden franchise, College Bowl now will be yearly release. They decided to release a little promo. It was pretty cool. Some new information there from the promo, especially if you're looking at it from the college football perspective. Got to hear Chris Fowler's voice, some new voice lines there, a high school, and Road to Glory was confirmed. I believe On3 published the whole article, so a lot of this stuff has been confirmed, officially confirmed. based on information they've been given. So things that were confirmed in this trailer: high school and Road to Glory. Brand new Scorebug, by the way, very SEC on ABC influenced, Thursday Night Football on Amazon influenced. A little bit concerned though with the Scorebug. Hopefully it still maintains the identity of this current game that's out there right now. The scoreboard where you have, especially in Dynasty, where you have like the team's ranking and their record. Hopefully they have that in there. I'm a little bit concerned they won't, because I think what we got didn't include that. So a little worried about that. Prayer emoji. Hopefully EA will include those little things we want. By the way, where we got the scoreboard, it's very quick in the trailer where they have like the fictional player in college or whatever. He's looking at the different TVs and little, like they have in elementary school, they have like the rolling cart with the TVs and stuff. He has like multiple TVs on there. It's showing off, the new Scorebug and stuff, and that's where it comes around. You have a Chris Fowler's voice. I'm assuming it'll be the same crew, like Chris Fowler, Kirk, Reese Davis, and Jesse Palmer. I don't think David Pollock will be back since he doesn't work on ESPN anymore. I'd imagine he won't be carried over for this year's game. But what was also in the trailer was Delaware. So confirmation that Delaware and Missouri State, who, by the way, are going to be FCS or transitioning from FCS to FBS this year. If you guys were confused by that did not confirm FCS teams. That just confirmed that, yes, Delaware and Missouri State, who are moving into the Q side, they will be in the game. So, of course, it will be, because there will be a D1 team. As for FCS, we don't know. Their release date was announced. It's July 10th for the general access, which ironically, that's the day of the first screenings, by the way, for James Gunn's Superman. So that same week, how about that? Getting sort of like last year with Deadpool and Wolverine, and then week before it was CFP 25. This time around, it's literally the day before. How about that? EA Sports and James Gunn going at it a little bit there. So yeah, about that, Superman and College Bowl 26 on literally that same day, because a lot of the early afternoon screenings on Thursday for a lot of these big movies like Marvel and I guess DC, we'll be doing that. So that's kind of cool. I've already ordered my copy of it on Amazon, so it should be here around that same time, a little bit earlier than it was last year. So it's the week after 4th of July. Now, for those of you who get the early access like the deluxe version and whatnot, you'll be getting your copy much earlier. A couple days after 4th of July. Got a breaking news here. Okay, that's not related to college football. But so I got the release date for College Bowl 26. Not a whole lot of new information. Of course, we did get confirmed, by the way, too, that Metallica will be a part of the game along with Lowe's. So I'd imagine for Virginia Tech, Enter Sandman will be in the game, I guess. It's not been confirmed, but based on the fact that Metallica is actually partnering with the band, I guess the surviving members of the crew. They're all still around, but a little bit older now. But those guys partnering with VA, it's the handshake emoji. Great. So that kind of means we're getting Metallica in the game finally. Sounds like. But so real coaches were also confirmed. That was leaked back a while ago of that photo shoot at the Rose Bowl. So real coaches like Lane Kiffin, Ryan Day, Kirby Smart will be in the game, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, CFP news finally. Now there's a question in the Q&A that refers to the lack of news lately until now. I'll sort of dive into that. But yeah, some CFP 26 news. How about that? Yay! Finally some news. And by the way, the full reveal, so like the official trailer, of course, since last year was like the relaunch of the series, they did a teaser trailer back in February. Then they did the official gameplay trailer in May. The full reveal will be in May. So think around Memorial Day. It's not next week or anything. At least I don't believe it is, but I would assume Memorial Day, that Friday before, much like last year, there'll probably be the full reveal trailer or somewhere before around that time. So yeah, a lot of news for College Bowl 26. Very excited. Got my pre-order from Amazon. Golf clap for EA. Again, you guys are marketing from EA, unlike Marvel and Star Wars right now. EA is marketing for this game, last year's game, this year's game. Great, just chef's kiss. Very good. Those folks up there at the PR for EA, doing some good stuff there. So, and look, I'm not even sponsored by EA. I'm not an EA partner or anything, but how about that? Okay, I'm gonna get some water here, and we're getting into a very, very touchy subject, one I'm not too excited to be talking about. But I know a lot of folks want me to talk about it, so I will address it one last time, and then we're going to put this in a filing cabinet and never touching it again. So get some water real quick, because this is a very touchy subject, with Andor right now and it coming out on Tuesday. So, moving on to some Star Wars news. Like I said, I'm not really excited about talking about this, but I will be addressing this one final time. So this is the last time, the first and only time. Well, I guess, the last time we will be addressing, not the first time we addressed this weeks ago. This will be the last time we're addressing Andor. So anything that's been leaked out or anything that I know, screw it. I'm just going to release it on here. I don't care. There's only one person watching this, which is me watching the feed. So everything that I know about Andor, all the sort of information that I know, which is really not a whole lot because I don't really care about the show, I will be addressing the show's release and the controversy that was in the first 3 episodes. And then after that, we're never touching this again. It sucks. I want to be a disclaimer here. This is not me hitting on the show. This is not me, I'm not going to be sitting here and crashing out on stream or like breaking a TV or smashing something. This is not me going after the creators of the show, like Tony Gilroy and all those people. This is not me going after the actors like, Diego Luna, Ben Mendelsohn, all those, the cast and crew. I don't hate those people. I'm sure they're not the reason why the show is what it is. They're just the actors doing the show. And there's elements of the show from what I've seen. I didn't actually watch it because I'm not excited about this show. I'm not watching it. I'm not watching something I'm not going to enjoy. I'd much rather rewatch stuff like the first season of Ahsoka or Clone Wars episodes or whatever. But there's parts of it that I do like. Visually, like I've been saying, with Andor season 1 and even what I have seen on clips on YouTube of season 2, visually looks good, right? They spent a lot of money on it. Though I would have liked to see that money go to somewhere else, Obi-Wan, and other shows. Lucasfilm not being able to allocate resources properly to their bigger projects. So it does sound like Ahsoka's doing it because they are filming in London with practical sets. So maybe they're starting to realize that. But anyway, visually, Andor looks pretty good, right? Got the physical sets. The locations look good. The CGI looks really good. The acting, I know a lot of folks aren't big on, big bombastic, Tarantino style acting in Star Wars. It's good, but it doesn't really fit Star Wars. Not really, at least to the Star Wars I'm used to seeing. So it visually looks good. Again, it's cool to see Krennic back. Ben Mendelsohn being back. He wasn't in the first season because, well, one, it's earlier on in the timeline, and he was filming Secret Invasion. By the way, also a bad show as well. But nice to see Mendelsohn back there. Of course, I'll still watch the clips of him because that character is cool from Rogue One. And also, by the way, before we get into the controversy and stuff and that whole mess, does this sort of change my perception of Rogue One? Does this show and the way it's been, how it's a lot different than the Star Wars I'm used to, and the whole controversy that happened on the first 2 episodes, and now I'm not a fan of this show. Does this change my mind about Rogue One? Because I still think when Rogue One came out, and of course with the sequel trilogy and the other Solo movie, I still believe this. My opinion on Rogue One has not been changed. I still believe it's the best Star Wars movie that Disney's put out since buying Lucasfilm back in 2012. I still think that, and I think everything in this show and the decisions they're making and things like that, it's not changing my mind on Rogue One. It's still a good movie. I'm not affected by it. I'm not letting it get to that point. But unfortunately, the controversy that Josh Schubert and Nerds reported on accurately, by the way, to a T. So kudos to him for getting this out there ahead of time, so I wasn't caught off guard. And I'll be honest, much like him, knowing this ahead of time before the show came out, my reaction to this is not as bad as it would have been, knowing that this was in it, even though I didn't actually watch the episodes. But some of you guys, the reaction in general, I guess, has been mixed to a certain extent. And that's unexpected, right? If you're a fan of this show, if you feel like Andor, you feel like that type of Star Wars, you like the fact that they're sort of, diversifying the franchise into doing more mature, gritty, stuff over there at Lucasfilm, that's fine, right? I've seen a lot of folks positively reacting to the whole situation that took place in the first 3 episodes. Now, unfortunately, I can't say those words because or else, Google and YouTube and now, Alphabet Company will come after me. But I think for those of you who have been, in the know, right? I think most of you are aware of what I'm referring to. And for those of you, again, who like Andor, and there's folks out there who appreciated this being introduced in the Star Wars and how this was handled, they liked it and they have a problem with it. I do have a problem with it. Josh Red Dan Nerds has a problem with it. Star Wars Theory has a problem with it too. And I know Star Wars Theory is, very controversial. A lot of folks hate him for some reason. That fact that, people associate him with a certain group of people, even though he doesn't really fit in that group that much. I've always liked Theory. His Vader project. The first episode, that was live action. The second one is going to be animated because it's a lot cheaper to do it that way. At least that's what he's told us. Very much a fan of that. His reaction to it, along with Josh over at Nerds, is very similar to me. I think what they introduced, and I've said this before when the leak came out from Josh over at Nerds weeks ago, and I'll repeat it here and I'll say this one last time. I think this totally goes against the vibes of Star Wars. It goes against what George was telling him was sort of the way George was wanting Star Wars to be, right? It's a fairy tale for kids, for families, and everyone to enjoy. He didn't necessarily put in a whole lot of real world things. I mean, if he did, like, the empires and stuff like that, but that stuff has not been, at least the way they're presenting it in Star Wars, has not been around for hundreds of years, right? It's not something that's relevant now. The thing they did put in, not only is relevant today, it's been relevant for a long time, it's still relevant now, obviously, but has a whole lot of implications in the legal world. It's something that people go to prison for. It is something that people who have been affected by it are scarred psychologically, and it's something that I just don't really believe it should be in Star Wars. It goes way too far. It's something that I mentioned this before weeks ago in the original. We touched on this before originally, that they definitely had to bring in lawyers for this. I'm sure they probably did. They probably had to consult with them to, hey, are we doing this properly and whatnot? Like, it's a big deal. You saw it over, like I mentioned when we first talked about it. I told you guys, I guarantee you that this will be talked about in spaces that don't talk about Star Wars, and let alone you have articles from a lot of different newsy networks, if you will, political sites or whatever are talking about it, which I told you guys, I was warning you guys that was going to happen, and here it is. But like I said, I totally agree with Josh and Star Wars Theory, at least in that line of thinking. I don't like it. I think it's embarrassing. I can't believe that it was actually approved. And to look, if anyone who disagrees with me, whatever, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. I'm not coming after certain people. I mean, I watched, by the way, Eric Voss's breakdown on New Rockstars guy. And I like Eric, and I think his breakdown, even though I didn't watch the episode, was good. I love the Easter eggs and stuff. And that stuff I like, even though it's, and I don't like in particular. But, I mean, look, he liked episodes, and he sort of made his sort of argument for why he thought the scene worked. And look, that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and argue with him. I mean, he's not a friend of the program. At least he's not coming on later. I mean, I like his stuff, but it's just for those people who do enjoy it, hats off to you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm not gonna watch it. I don't like the fact that they did introduce what they introduced, and the fact that they got improved and everything, and it's just the fact that no one over there tried to stop it. It's like, come on, guys. Like, this is not what George intended the franchise to be like. But there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing we can do about it. We have Dave stuff coming up, which Dave, being a student under George, I would imagine is probably not happy this got approved. And I know a lot of folks, and Josh made a big deal about it in his video. And look, in his stream yesterday, he mentioned that he was disappointed in a lot of folks not necessarily getting the word out. Can be me, because I did. I tweeted it out as soon as the video was released. Now, of course, I'm busy. I'm not on Twitter all the time, but I do agree with Josh a little bit that a lot of folks, including me to a certain extent, could have got the word out there a little bit more. But I think what Josh mentioned in his first initial, when he brought it up in his video a couple weeks ago, that he wished that Filoni and those guys would have stopped this. That wasn't going to happen. That was not going to happen. Tony Gilroy has made it apparent that he was not taking any notes from anyone. He was sort of isolating himself, and I think what probably happened here is that Gilroy and those guys, of course, Catholic Kennedy having a lot of faith in him, sort of shutting him off from Dave, even though Dave is like up there in terms of the power structure over there, Lucasfilm. I would imagine that this was never on Dave's radar. I'm assuming he was surprised as much as we were when this happened. I'm sure he probably wanted to talk to Gilroy about, just saying, hey, I know you want to introduce this, but I really don't think you should be doing this. I do think, I don't know this for sure, but I hope that Dave at least thought that. I'm assuming he probably thought that. I'm assuming that Dave probably wanted to try to stop this or at least talk to Gilroy, but he wasn't going to. Tony was off on his own, isolated and whatnot. He wasn't hearing from anyone, which is what it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's out there now. The monkey's out of the bag now. So like I said, I will not be talking about Andor the rest of the season. I'm not going to watch it. I'll still watch Easter egg videos and stuff because I do like, Eric Voss and those guys explaining it. And I'll still watch some of the stuff with Krennic and whatnot. That stuff is kind of interesting to me, but the rest of the show, it's boring and whatnot from what I've heard. It's, just like last season, boring, lumbering, some action. Some of the action's kind of cool, like when Andor steals a TIE fighter, the prototype TIE fighter. And there's some Easter eggs, too, of, the TIE Advanced fighters from Rebels are in there, but I'm not watching the series entirely. I'm not doing it. Now, I will say, the one thing I do know, and this was something that was put out there a while ago in one of the articles about several legacy characters that will be appearing that have been recast. Bail Organa, who's been played by Jimmy Smits for a long time, starting in back in Attack of the Clones up until the Obi-Wan show. His character, Bail Organa, will be appearing in the show, but Jimmy Smits is not coming back. It's been reported out there that who's an actor, Benjamin Bratt, will be playing him. Of course, he was cast a while ago. A lot of folks are wondering who would he be playing. It is going to be Bail Organa, so Jimmy Smits is not coming back. I have my suspicions as to why he's not coming back. One of them, I think the one that's probably more likely is that now the excuse that Tony Gilroy and I'm sure Disney will use when that character eventually shows up and people notice, oh, that's not Jimmy Smits, it's someone else. That the excuse they're going to use is, oh, Jimmy was out, he was busy, we couldn't get him, or we wanted more money. Guys, I can guarantee you that's not the reason why Jimmy Smits didn't come back. I have no inside sources telling me this, but from what I believe, he didn't come back probably because of what happened with the Kenobi show and how poorly received that was. And I'd imagine Smits probably was offered to come back, told him no. Nothing to do with money. It wasn't nothing to do with scheduling conflicts. I firmly believe because of how bad Kenobi was of the show and the negative reaction it got, I just think Jimmy Smits said, no, I'm not coming back. You guys can go on without me. So, again, that's not nothing that's been told to me. That's not any information that's been given to me. But from what I'm gathering, it wasn't a money issue, I don't think. It wasn't a scheduling issue because you can look up Jimmy Smits' Wikipedia page and has nothing indicating him filming anything new right now, at least to my knowledge. So, yeah, I think it was probably have to do with Kenobi and how that went down. And it probably wasn't a good experience, probably. And not to mention the fan reaction to it. So, yeah, he's not coming back. It's a new actor playing that character. It sucks. I don't know anything else besides that, but that's been something that's been floating around for a while, and it's in a bit of a spoiler that got leaked out. But I'm not watching the show, so may as well put it out there for you guys to be aware of it so you're not surprised. So, anyway, enough of the negativity. Let's get some positivity here. Got some Q&A. We got some Buccaneers draft stuff, so we're not done yet. Still have a long ways to go here. Let's get some more water here, and then we'll press on. So I got some Q&A here, as we typically do around this time of the show. And then, of course, after this, we'll briefly touch on the Buccaneers draft situation, where they're going to go. But first question here in the Q&A here, rapid fire Q&A. Thoughts on the Thunderbolts reactions and late post-credit scene? So, so Thunderbolts fan screenings happened this week. Good reactions. I think everything's been pretty positive so far. Now, for the post-credit scene, may as well talk about it here. It's not spoiling the entire movie, but it kind of does a little bit. So I guess spoiler here if you don't want to know what's going on. But I watched Josh's video, Jennifer's video yesterday. So what's happening in the post-credit scene? So after the events in the movie, There's one post-credit scene with with the Red Guardian. That's not. It's like a funny post-credit scene, and it's kind of cool to watch in the theater, but it's not really that relevant. This one is. So it's towards the end of the movie. Not the end of the movie. It's the final post-credit scene. It's the Thunderbolts now. Of course, we know what the asterisk is, which is the Avengers. Should have been evident during the Doomsday chair reveal thing, but now it's the monkey's out of the cat's out of the bag now, right? So now it's the New Avengers. That's what the asterisk means. That's what the actual title is. It's New Avengers. And so the post-credit scene, it's Bucky, Yelena, surviving, of course, Taskmaster. We know the character's going to die in the movie. It's obvious now after the leaks and stuff and the fan screening. So the post-credit scene shows them. I think it's like involving them getting sued, I believe, because they're using the Avengers name, which is kind of interesting. I believe it's Sam Wilson, Captain America, who's suing them. So it's a little bit of a connection there to the Brave New World. But what is interesting here, there's been a lot of weird leaks, too, of this post-credit scene, a lot of conflicting misinformation, a lot of fake news and stuff. But what is in the post-credit scene that is very, 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 very appealing is in the post-credit scene, somehow, some way, I'm not sure how it's being represented here, but the Fantastic Four's rocket ship that you see in the trailers enters in the Earth's atmosphere and somewhere in the post-credit scene. So there you go, a teaser from Fantastic Four. Cool. It definitely sets up a lot of interesting things. It definitely seems like that's probably going to be how the Fantastic Four, at least their involvement in Doomsday, I guess they end up on Earth somehow. Of course, if you've been following the leaks and stuff for Fantastic Four, the movie, of course, this is what this is teasing in a lot of ways that in Doomsday, that their Earth and their movie, the Fantastic Four movie, is not be destroyed, will not be destroyed by Galactus, but come Doomsday, it will be destroyed by Doctor Doom, which will be Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. So I believe this will be our first quasi footage from Doomsday, because I don't believe that says I don't think this is shot recently, because they've been shooting recently, right? You've seen all the leaked set photos and whatnot, but I believe this was something they probably cobbled together pretty quickly, of course, using assets from the Fantastic Four movie. And of course, could this change a little bit? We've seen, post-credit scenes like the Thanos post-credit scene in Age of Ultron was sort of a non-context, weird post-credit scene. It's still cool, right? Him getting the Infinity Gauntlet and saying, "I'm fine, I'll do it myself," but even though that was never in the movie. This could change, but it's cool that they are, yes, teasing the Fantastic Four, even though we're getting the news trailer that was released last week ahead of it. So kind of stranger teasing it both during the previews and towards the end of the movie. So weird, but hey, it's cool. I mean, when I heard that and when I read that and watched Josh's video and he was explaining it, gonna be honest, got chills, man. This and the Marvels post-credit scene, which it's ironic, right? It's a terrible film in the Marvels with a really cool post-credit scene with Beast and the connections to the X-Men. I'm assuming that's the X-Men that we're seeing in Doomsday, or at least that's the same Earth that we're with Monica Rambeau with Beast. And besides that, this is probably the best post-credit scene that Marvel has done this decade so far. It's that one and the one from the Marvels are the two most meaningful ones so far. So cool. That's fan reactions are going well. Of course, I'll eventually go see it. It's cool that the post-credit scene is actually setting up Doomsday to a certain extent, and also, again, teasing the Fantastic Four before their movie comes out in July. So how about that? Next question, why the lack of news on EA Sports College Football 26 until now? Of course, we just mentioned the news that came out today. I was I wasn't actually on, but I was in the live chat with Brandon Marcello at 247 in his sort of After Dark series, which he started back at Auburn. If you're a fan of him or are an Auburn fan, if you remember him when he was with Auburn Undercover, he will do those. Brandon Marcello will do those Auburn After Dark videos, live streams, and he stopped doing those once he got to the main 247 like CBS Sports, and now he's brought them back. So I was with him in the live chat yesterday, not yesterday, but day before yesterday on Tuesday. So you may have noticed that I was in there chatting with him, asking him some questions. Well, one of the questions I mentioned was EA Sports College Football, and Brandon sort of brought up, the reason why there's been a lack of news, which made sense. At least me thinking before I was in his live stream that hey, the game last year was the new version and everyone's excited and There was sort of more of a excitement to get information, whereas versus this year we have the game now and we're sort of distracted from getting new news. But what Brandon brought up was very interesting. So what he revealed in his live stream is that basically the folks over at EA, with all these reporters like him, Matt Brown, I'm assuming, and Matt Brown also mentioned this too on I believe on Tuesday as well, so ironic. But Matt Brown and Marcelo in particular were both the bigger reporters getting news on this, really scoops and stuff. The folks at EA's PR team didn't like that, and they've been pretty quiet, sort of secret agent type. They've been sending schools less stuff and whatnot. So if you're to FOIA something, you're not getting a whole lot of information. That makes sense that you're not getting a whole lot of information now because everybody's stadiums, for the most part, except for ones that are getting new renovations, Florida State, not really a whole new stuff to be revealed, I guess. Like maybe assets for, Delaware and Missouri State. But those have been probably going on for at least the past year or so. But, Marcelo kind of put it out there. Yeah, folks at EA then weren't necessarily happy. It wasn't like they're mad at them, but they weren't like over the moon that all this stuff was being leaked out well before. So that's why you're seeing less and less information this time around because of that, and also because of, the game's out now, right? The game's back, so we've been distracted with the current game. And then we have the new game that's not been released yet, and we're focused on the new game, right? And of course, we had a lot of stuff going on with, like, the real-world football stuff. But, now you have finally had some news. And so the quietness, if you will, of the EA Sports college football news cycle is finally calming down now, or at least ratcheting up after it was sort of subsided a little bit over the past several months, if you will. Final question here, very important one. This is the question. What is the importance of the April 27th super outbreak? This is weather related. And why are people fascinated by it? So if you guys don't know, if you're not in the weather community like me, in about 3 days, we're getting the anniversary of April 27th. Very generational tornado outbreak. One of the darkest days in my lifetime. Of course, I wasn't around for 9/11. I wasn't born yet. So to me, this is sort of, at least in my life, my September 11th. Of course, it's not the same thing, right? That was a terrorist attack, and this is a weather event. But at least the feel of hopelessness and a lot of just sadness, and it was a dark day, especially in the weather community. It's one of those very dark days. Of course, it's up there with Hurricane Katrina, Andrew, the Moore tornado, and 2013, the last F5 or EF5. But again, for me, who's someone who didn't experience 9/11, this is on that day when I was in third grade when this happened. That's probably what it felt like. A lot of just horror, a lot of hopelessness. It felt like the world was ending. If you don't remember, this outbreak was a multiple sequence, right? It started the day before in Texas with a high risk across like Arkansas and Louisiana and Texas. Eventually shifted over to where I was living in Alabama. High risk there. It's not uncommon. They've had high risk there, and at least in my lifetime, several times. Like 2006, year before in 2010. But this one was really different. The days before, leading up to it, James Spann in his weather extreme videos, now they're his weather briefing videos, was very concerned. The day before, I'll never forget watching his video on YouTube. You can tell in James's voice how concerned he was, and it's something that he's never had before, up until or hasn't had since. But that was the most distressed I've ever seen him talk before. And of course, I didn't live in Birmingham, but I lived in a different area. But even the meteorologists in the market I was living in, the DMA, were very concerned. That was a different tone. And the day certainly lived up to the hype. Multiple rounds. The first round was like a massive line of storms that moved through that morning. A lot of folks, according to 1 million people, lost power. So a lot of folks were already at a communication disadvantage already. A lot of damage from either straight line winds or embedded tornadoes of the initial batch of storms that were leftovers from the previous day. Then we just kept getting multiple rounds after rounds of storms, and we got like a middle round, if you will, a very small line of storm moved through, at least the area I was living in North Alabama. And then we got the supercells in the afternoon, and that was where all the death and destruction was, and some of the most riveting tower cam footage I've ever seen. At least the footage, right? Some of the coverage, especially with James Spann and Jason Simpson down there in Birmingham, like the footage of the Coleman tornado, Tuscaloosa tornado, and the Birmingham tornado, which is the same one as the Tuscaloosa tornado. Just very powerful tower cam footage. I mean, again, that's just incredible. And again, that's the biggest outbreak and probably the worst day of my life, I think, in terms of violence. Again, like I said, I wasn't around for 9/11. I was born a year after, but that's probably the closest I'll ever get to something like that happening. Just a very dark day, at least in my lifetime. Now, the other part of the question is, why are people fascinated about it? And I think I've seen this a lot in the weather community. I think a lot of folks have seen this as well. A lot of meteorologists have noticed this, that there's this. I mean, look, you can be fascinated about history, right? A lot of folks are fascinated about World War II and the Cold War and stuff. And look, it's understandable, right? If you were directly impacted by that, a little bit different to see people fascinated by it. And this is the angle I'm sort of coming from here. Whereas, look, I understand why you're fascinated by it. I get it. It's a very, historical event. But I don't know. There's just this weird thing, especially the younger generation, folks who were born after me, like born in like in 2009 or 2010 or whatever, maybe a little bit too young to remember it. The sense I get, and I don't know if this is the way other folks feel, but I think this is what I'm at least getting at from other like storm spotters and meteorologists who I follow, that a lot of these folks who are college age now, who were too young to remember April 27th, there's this sort of like, a feeling of you missed out on it, and like you're jealous that other folks experienced it. And I don't know, it's just a weird thing. And like every single time now we get like a higher risk, it's like, oh man, it's gonna be a historical, massive, mega outbreak. And I'm not trying to sound like the James Spann meme, but it's like I kind of agree with James a little bit to the extent where it is getting annoying that people, oh man, high risk got issued. Oh man, it's gonna be April 27th all over again. Well, no, it's not. High risk are rare, but they do happen once a year and are not that uncommon. But I don't know. That's just, look, people are fascinated by it. I'm still somewhat fascinated by it, even though I was somewhat impacted by it. At least I was in the same state as the whole entire situation as it was unfolding. But it's a little bit different when you actually experience it. We're old enough to remember it, like me. And I remember being in our shelter, the closet that we were in the entire day. We really didn't get out really that much. So, yeah, I have a lot of respect for that day, and I have it's a day that I have a lot of importance for. And then that anniversary is coming up this Sunday. Of course, I will be thinking about it probably. I'm sure Josh be on his show, probably touch on it just a little bit, because he will do a show. Thursday has no show tonight. But as a storm spotter as he is, I'm sure he'll probably bring it up a little bit during a show, because, why not? As much like me and him are pretty similar in that we're big weather enthusiasts. But the April 27th outbreak had a lot of impact on me as a weather enthusiast. Now, I've mentioned before, when I got started into weather when I was very young, and in second grade or whatever, in kindergarten. But this outbreak was the big event that really pushed me to really liking it, or to at least be more fascinated with it. I think liking it's a very kind of a poor choice of words there, but enthusiastic by it and fascinated by the science behind it and stuff like that. So, yeah, that outbreak has a lot of it was very important in my life, and certainly was a day where I, in terms of my enthusiasm for atmospheric science, I grew up a little bit, and that's where I really started taking it more seriously. So, yeah, that's a day that I will remember for a long time. So, anyway, enough of the Q&A. Let's get into the Buccaneers draft stuff. So the NFL draft is tonight. A lot of folks, NFL fans, are nervous right now, especially if you're in the top 10, wondering where your team would be picking. For the Buccaneers, had the 19th pick, I believe. Let me check the order here. Let's see here, 2025. I believe the Bucs do have the 19th overall pick. I just don't remember off the top of my head. There we go. Go to the Wikipedia page. It's in Green Bay, by the way. So a lot of like Pat McAfee is up there with his show. Kirk and Reese Davis, the College Game Day guys, are up there as well. So I guess Peter will be up there as well. Peter Herbstreit, dog. Kirk's a dog. So yeah, Buccaneers at 19th. Which direction will they go? With drafts and stuff, it's a loose cannon to really predict here. It's a lot of different directions. Trades can happen. Could Tampa trade up and trade a pick and their pick, and the player could happen. Right? There's an outside chance they could do that, right? If they were to do that, maybe to go get Travis Hunter if he falls down a little bit. Of course, Tampa, at least the thinking where I'm believing Top Bulls will go, which they've been going the past couple of years in the first round, at least historically, is usually defense. So think, defensive line, probably the safeties, I would imagine. There's some names and popping around. The kid from Marshall has been a name to look at. But if the Buccaneers were to trade up, if they were to, for some reason, do it, I'm not expecting them to do it, would be to maybe get Travis Hunter, have him play corner. or a receiver. Now, if they do go receiver, McMillan has been a name I've been hearing a little bit. He's a receiver from Arizona. He's in the draft. That'll be a spot to get him. Of course, Tampa, I mean, they have good receivers. They have McMillan, who's young. Trey Palmer's young. Chris Godwin, injury prone, but he's back. Mike Evans, still very, very reliable. I think the best receiver in all of football, including college. Though he's a little older now, so I think they could get a receiver, but they could probably wait until the later rounds. I wouldn't mind there. I would have preferred them to get a receiver in the first round, another one, to sort of supplement the depth and whatnot. But more likely, probably defense, probably safety, I would imagine, because the Buccaneers' pass defense last year was horrible. I'll just be honest, it was not good. And I think Todd Bowles and them would like to address that. We'll see which way they go in terms of that, if they go, who they end up getting, which is, not easiest thing to predict. So, yeah, probably defense, I think, for Tampa. Could they trade up to go get Travis Hunter? They could, especially if they really, really notice him starting to slide down a little bit. But doesn't seem too likely they'll do that. I think Travis Hunter will probably go way before that. But Tampa, defensively, I think they'll probably go that direction. Outside chance they get a receiver, but it's not likely because they literally just got Jalen McMillan from Washington last year. So I think they're good for every year. I think next year they probably will get one, probably get a receiver. So, yeah, I think defensively for Tampa, that's the direction they're going to go. Who is it going to be? I don't know. I've seen a lot of names, seen a ton of names. I think outside of the top 10, you're going to see a whole lot of names, especially once you get past number 10 for the picks. So, yeah, for Tampa, again, I'm thinking probably defensively, probably defensive back, I'd imagine, maybe linebackers too. But yeah, very excited here to see what they get. And look, we'll react to it on the Tuesday show, and we'll kind of do the whole breakdown. But if you want more longer form coverage, Peter Report, Cannon Fire Podcast, James over at Mr. Bucs Nation, we'll have you covered on that if you want more Buccaneers, actual in-depth stuff. But from what I'm hearing, probably defense, maybe a receiver, maybe, especially if they draft, if they trade up, maybe. But doesn't seem likely. So that's my thoughts on Tampa, their draft situation. So we will have a show on Tuesday, as per usual. I've never on Thursday. So until then, enjoy your weekend wherever you are. Enjoy the weather. It's going to be nice for the most part, at least where I'm at here in Florida and Jacksonville. A nice weekend, nice and warm. So until next Tuesday, take care. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday. So take care, guys. We'll see you then.